Okay, I'm going to show you today how to manually enter data into the new version of Ramses, version 4. So first we have to go to the Plugins menu, and you open Locus Tools, and then you open Locus Cache Data Frame. So here we have a new window that opens up, and you see there are a number of buttons at the top. Open eLocus 3 Tools, Manual Entry, Edit, Delete Selected Row, Plot on the Map, and export data into database. Now we're going to choose manual entry. So go ahead, click on that, and you see a new window appears with a number of tabs at the top. The first one is the report tab, date and time, and here you can enter the date of the report. You click on the day, select the month from the list, and select the year. Okay, so we have 13 January 2015 as our example. You can also indicate the hour if you know that. Again, selecting from the list, using the arrows up and down to select the right number. You can select the minute in the same way. Or you can indicate approximate time if you happen to know that if it's in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening or at night. So that's when the time is given to you precisely. After the date and time, then you enter the location. Here you must enter a name for the location. So you click in that box and you simply type. So in this case, Abu Ramad is our name. And then you enter the coordinates of Abu Ramad. So if you're given the coordinates, you enter those coordinates. Otherwise, you must look them up and then enter them. So here you see the example. You highlight the first 3 digits of the longitude, and then you enter the digits, and then the cursor will move to the minutes and then to the seconds. Okay, so you can indicate if a GPS was used or not by ticking the box. And you can indicate the location accuracy through the drop-down menu. In this case, we indicate exact. Okay. If you indicate something else like approximate or vague, then you'll need to indicate the distance, the displacement distance in kilometers from the coordinates that you have listed above. And you can indicate the displacement distance direction. You have other items here on the form. The area surveyed. You need to enter a value here. And the area to be treated in hectares. And if there's an area to be treated, you can enter this value here. Now remember, this is the area to be treated. Okay. Then on the third tab, we have General. So here you should indicate the observer name. So if you know the name of the person who saw the locus or the vegetation, you indicate the reliability. If it's unknown, dubious, or reliable, you can make your selection. Indicate the confirmation, if it's confirmed report or unconfirmed or unclear. And the status of the report. If it's unknown, saved, sent, received, or queued, and we'll choose received. Okay. If you want to enter any comments in the fourth tab, you have a window here. You can type any comments that you want. So here we type a report received by mobile call from the field. Okay, and then there's an administration tab. You see some other information. Down at the bottom, you'll see a reference number. And you also see an asset number. And this number will indicate MAE, manual entry, and then a number after that. Okay, so that's the date and time, location, general comments, administration. That's on the report tab. Let's go now to the ecology tab. Here in the ecology tab, under the habitat tab, you see the types of topology that you can indicate. And remember, you can indicate up to 2 types. So for our example, we will indicate wetty and plain. Okay. Then you can indicate, optionally, if you wish, the soil type. So in our case, we indicate sand, but you can indicate as many different types as you want. And then an indication of the soil moisture. You can say unknown, dry, slightly moist, moist, or wet. Okay, we indicate wet. And then if we indicate wet, then you should indicate the soil depth from where the wetness starts to where the wetness ends. So sometimes it's below the surface, or it may be right at the surface, and it may continue then down a number of centimeters below the surface. So in this case, from 0 to 15. Okay, let's move to the second subtab, vegetation. Here we have all the information about the vegetation. The state of the vegetation, is it dry, drying, green, or greeny? And we will select green. And the density of the vegetation. This is a general density, low, medium, or dense. And you can also indicate the total vegetation cover, the percentage, if you know that. This is optional. Here we can indicate the species of annual and perennial vegetation by right-clicking in the box and selecting Append. And there we can choose from a long list of names. And you can type the first few letters of the name to reach the name in this long list. And you can choose up to 3 species names for both annual vegetation and for perennial vegetation. Okay, let's move to the weather subtab, and here we can indicate when the last rainfall occurred, the date, and there's a start and an end date. So this allows you to enter more than one date if it's known. So our example, we highlight the day, we highlight the month, enter the values, and highlight the year, enter the values. You can do the same thing with the arrow keys. If you don't know exactly when it is, tick the approximate tab. In the approximate period, then you can enter here the number of days, and if you know the rain amount, either in millimeters, and you enter the number of millimeters, or if you don't know that, the estimated amount, light, moderate, or heavy. Now there's other information about the weather, temperature, and the relative humidity, and cloud cover, the wind direction from, the speed, the sandstorm, the visibility level, and the humidity, wet bulb temperature. And we have also the units here in terms of visibility. Okay, those are the 3 tabs for ecology. Let's move now to the locus tabs. And you see here we have 5 subtabs. We'll start with the general subtab. And here you indicate absent or presence of the locus. So in our case, we will say present. Locust names. These are the species names. Again, right-click with your mouse, append, and choose from the list here, Schistocerca. Now, in the future, this will probably be a default setting, and you won't need to do this unless there's a different species of locust. And here, if you wish, you can indicate an infested area in hectares. Now let's move to the hopper subtab. Okay. Well, first, this is a general subtab. Now we're going to move to the hopper subtab. Okay. And here we have the hopper stage. And you can enter information about solitary transients, transients gregarians, transient dissocians, and gregarious. And we have U for unknown, E for egg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and F for fledgling stages. And you can indicate as many as there are present. As many times there'll be more than one stage present at a location. Then you can enter the dominant stage if you have more than one stage present. And you do exactly the same for the other phases. And they may be the same or they may be different. Again, because there's more than one selected, you must indicate a dominant stage. So here we're now the gregarious. There's some gregarious appearing hoppers that are hatching, first, second, and third instar, and the dominant stage has to be one of those. So it's a second instar in this case, in our example. Then you can indicate a site count. And this is the number of locusts that would be present at the site. So in our case, a number of solitarious third instar hoppers, or 70 that were seen. And the number of second, third, and fourth instar transient hoppers were 100 that were seen. And the number of gregarious first, second, and third instar hoppers that were seen, 200. Okay, now remember on these windows you'll need to scroll down in case all the information doesn't fit in the window. And you see down below this a density estimate and then a number of choices. There is null, unknown, low, medium, and high. So here we can put low, for example. For each phase you can indicate, and it can be different. So the transience was low, and for the gregarious, in our case, it was medium. Then the next field we see the behavior, scattered, isolated, or groups. You can choose any number of those. You can indicate the color of the hoppers. Again, any number of those selections you can make. And if you know anything about the activity, you can indicate the activity. Again, multiple selections are possible. So that's the general, the hopper. Now let's move to the band. Again, we have the band stages. Remember, there's egg, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth, and fledgling. And if there's more than one stage, you need to indicate the dominant stage. You must indicate something about the density. So we have some possibilities. You can indicate the minimum, average, and maximum number of hoppers in that band. And you should indicate then the unit area. Or you can indicate a density estimation. If you don't know the numbers, you can indicate low, medium, or high. So in our case, we'll indicate an estimate of medium density. Similar with the size, you can indicate numbers for the minimum, average, and maximum size of the hopper band. And again, the unit of the size. Or you can indicate a size estimate. Very small, small, medium, large, and very large. So for our example, we've indicated small. Indicate then the color of the hoppers in the hopper band, black, yellow, black, or green. can be any one of those or all of those. And what activity the hopper man might be doing: hatching, marching, feeding, roosting, or molting. Again, we can indicate the number of hopper bands that might be present. If there's more than one present at the location, you can indicate that. And what might be the average distance in meters between each of those hopper bands. You can indicate that, a numerical value. So our example, there are 8 hopper bands with 100 meters average distance between them. Okay, let's move now to the adult tab. And here again, we start with the stages of the adults in the different phases. So the solitary, and we can choose any combination. So example, there's all stages of the solitary, then all 3 would be indicated: immature, maturing, and mature. In our case, we have maturing and mature. And we indicate that mature is a dominant stage because there's more than one stage. And if you make a change, then you can change the dominant stage. So now we have immature. Again, indicate the density estimate, unknown, low, medium, or high. If you indicate the density estimate is low, then you cannot indicate the number of adults per site. But if you indicate it as null, then you can indicate the number of adults per site. So again, you see low, and you cannot indicate the site count. Okay, you can indicate the breeding, copulating, or laying, but remember the adults must be mature for that. Indicate if there's transients, transient gregarians, transients dissocians, or gregarious hoppers. You can indicate their stages one by one. And indicate if there's any breeding, and you indicate the dominant, if there's dominance, and density estimates or site count. So for gregarious adults, we have immature, maturing, immature in this example. And maturing is the dominant stage of the gregarious adults. And the density estimate is indicated as medium. And there's both copulating and laying going on. You can indicate the color of the adults that are present at that location. And there's adults of different colors. You can indicate as many colors as you want here: gray, brown, yellow wings, pink, and yellow. So we indicate brown, and we indicate yellow wings, and pink, and yellow in this example. Again, you can indicate the behavior: isolated, scattered, or groups of adults. And in our example, we indicate isolated and scattered. Now, the density at the bottom here, you can indicate numerical values for the density. And when you do that, of course, you must indicate the unit of the density. Now, if you make a foot transect, you can indicate the number of locusts that you've seen in your foot transect. You indicate the length and the width of that transect as well. So, in this case, in our example, we're entering the number of adults. In our case, this is 0 because the density here is indicated as low. Again, you can indicate the activity: settled, takeoff, milling, or flying. In other words, what the adults are doing. Okay, so let's now go to our next sub-tab for swarms. So if there's swarms at the location, you should indicate the stage of that swarm or swarms. So in our example, we indicate immature and maturing, and so because more than one stage is indicated, you must indicate the dominant stage. Our example is immature is a dominant stage. indicate the color of the adults in the swarm. So in our case, both pink and yellow. And if there's any breeding. Activity, if you know there's any activity, settled, takeoff, milling, or flying, you can indicate that. So in our example, we indicate that they're settled and they're milling. Here you can indicate the density either as specific numbers or as an estimate. So a specific number is a minimum maximum per unit area. So per hectare, per square kilometer, or a density estimate is low, medium, or dense. Similarly, with the size, you can indicate numerical values for the minimum and maximum size and the unit area for that size, or a size estimate. In the size estimate, you can indicate very small, small, medium, large, or very large, by choosing from the list. If you indicate null, then you should indicate the minimum and maximum size of the swarm using numbers. And you should be careful when you enter a maximum size, make sure that the minimum size does not go back to 0. You may have to correct that. And then you have to indicate the unit area. So in this case, up to 110 hectares, or the size of the swarm. And automatically you see the size estimate has been indicated as large. This is based on the definitions in the monthly Desert Locust Bulletin by FAO. Okay, you see we put that back to 0, then the size estimate becomes null. Okay, and you can see those definitions. If you select small, then you see the minimum size is 1 and the maximum size is 10. Okay, you can also indicate the swarm, the direction that it's flying from, and the direction that it's flying to. Don't mix those up. And the flying height of that swarm, low, medium, or high. Then you can indicate the direction, also in a numerical value from the degrees of the compass. And you can indicate the flying duration in hours and minutes. How long was that swarm that was seen flying? Then you can indicate the cohesion in the shape of the swarm. If it's weak, medium, or strong cohesion, that's how much the swarm is staying together. And the shape, if it's cumuliform, which is very tall, or stratiform, which is a flat horizontal shape of the swarm. Okay, so we have finished the swarm tab. Now let's move to the last tab, the control. This is where all the information is for the control operations. So you have application, sprayer, and safety information that you can complete. So under the application type, you can indicate the barrier or full cover application. And the next, the method of the application, handheld, backpack, vehicle, or air. So in our case, example, use vehicle. Okay, and you can also check mechanical if mechanical was used or not. The total area that was treated in hectares. Okay, so our example, 50 hectares were treated, and if you happen to know the area that is protected, now this is used only in barrier spraying, not in full cover. The pesticide name you choose from the list, the name of the pesticide that was used. You can only choose one pesticide. So in our example, we will choose chlorpyrifos. And the formulation, if it's bait, dust, EC, or ULV. In most cases, it should be ULV. And you should indicate the concentration of that pesticide and the units of that concentration. So the concentration is 45 and it's 45%. Next, indicate the application rate that was used during the control operations and the unit of that application rate. And here you can indicate any number that you wish. So it's 1 liter per hectare. Indicate the total number of liters that were used, and of course you need to indicate if it was liters or something else. So the total amount of pesticide that was used in our example is 50 liters. Okay. If you know the expiry date of the pesticide, you can indicate that. This is optional. So in our example, supposed to expire on the 1st of January 2017. And if you know how long the application took, what was the treatment duration in hours and minutes? Okay. Now, if there's any solvent that was used with the pesticide, you can tick that box and you can enter the information of the solvent. Notice down at the bottom of the window we have a refreshing problem. If you're just to move that window, it would refresh itself. There's other information then, of course, regarding the temperature, the humidity, the wind speed, the direction, the sprayer direction. Those are all about the weather. Okay. Now let's move to photos. Photos, there's nothing really you can add. So the last one is the diagnosis. This is a very important tab, the diagnostics tab. Okay, and here it will show you all of the errors or all of the missing data that might be entered. And you'll need to correct all of that before you can export this record into the database. Okay, so let's try to make an error here. And there we see there's missing data here. And you see the R means report, the L means locus, and the C means control, and it's the application type that is missing. So when we put that information in, you look at the diagnosis, and now your window is empty. That means everything is okay. But when you see something listed here in that window, it means not everything's okay. When it's okay, you say okay, and you have completed your record. But you have not exported it into the database yet. So if you close this window with a red X, you will lose this data. First, let's have a look at this data. You can see all of that data is listed. So all of that information that you've entered into the record is seen here in each column. Okay. Now, at this point, you can enter a new record, and it would be listed here under the second row. Okay. We're just showing you here all of the information that you've entered. We have the location accuracy. Remember, we put approximate. If the GPS is used, and so on and so forth. If you want to change something, you go back to that. You can change that location accuracy. So everything that you've entered in that record is then displayed in the correct column here. Okay, so that's your manual entry. If you're happy with it, there's no mistakes, no missing data, then you export that data into the database. And this saves your record into the Ramsey's database.